Hey, everybody. Welcome back. So excited. As I've mentioned before, my podcast guests are so critically important to me. And this next guest, his name is Craig, I've known for over 30 years. We were just doing the math. Craig, my friend, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey, I say good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Craig Loundas. I am the Associate Vice President for the Penn Medicine Experience at Penn Medicine in Philadelphia, which kind of encompasses both the patient and family experience intersecting with the employee experience. And you're probably saying, how do I know Francesca? Is that my prior 20 years of my career were working in higher education, and Francesca was one of my resident assistants at
I
Widener
was.
University. Yeah, how about that? And the funny thing I remember is that I got married in 1990, and you gave my wife a Sposa Bella Italian wedding magazine.
Yes.
So, and we'll
Oh
talk
my
about stories
God.
later on too, but I always think about that she was Italian, or she still is Italian, and you knew that would be fun for her to have. So many
Wow.
years later, we've kept in touch. It's good to see you.
It's great to see you, Craig. And a few moments ago, I was reminding Craig of his genius because he remembers things. He's incredibly brilliant. He's very humble introduction, Craig. But yes, I completely forgot about that Sposabella magazine. It was just something that I loved looking at. It was the current Italian fashion for wedding dresses, and it was just so much fun. Wow, thank you for bringing that up. It's heartwarming. So you have an incredible amount of responsibility and you're incredibly calm about it. And there's so many great things that we could talk about. And what Craig and I decided was let's talk about how you build the culture. We cannot deny how hard it's been for organizations to have a strong culture working remotely. We've all had our worlds shaken in that, how do we check in with people? And while we were just in the green room, Craig mentioned a number of programs and how they check in with their employees. So, Craig, I'm going to hand it over to you so that you feel free to talk about all of these incredible and generous programs that your organization offers. Where do you want to start?
So it's a good thing just for the landscape of Penn Medicine. If you're familiar with Philadelphia, we've grown significantly. We're now at 45,000 employees. So we're not just in the city of Philadelphia, but we're also as far as Lancaster, Princeton, Westchester with our hospitals. And one of the things that we realized as we were kind of going through these, growth through mergers, is that we needed to have a kind of a shared set of values. So we spent a lot of time developing what we called our Penn Medicine Experience standards. And we went to all locations, talked to employees, providers, patients, family members, and kind of landed on a set of shared values, which really, I think, drive the culture. So when you think about it, you just can't have culture and say, this is what we do. So it's kind of driven around some basic sets of behaviors. The funny thing is and this was done in 2018, and we've been launching kind of a campaign each year. And the very odd thing around 2020, it was our year of being present, which was, one of the most interesting things, who would have thought we'd be using this during a pandemic, which was to make those who might feel isolated more connected. So this was a time when we were not allowing patients to have visitors because of the pandemic. So we have this shared set of culture and values. This year is actually our year of being empowered. So we kind of launch one per year. And what we do, I think the part that is for anyone to think about is the power of storytelling. What we do really to build culture is that we ask our entities or business units to really highlight employees and specific behaviors that really embody that standard. Which really, from a neuroscience, to sound really geeky, from a neuroscience standpoint, is that really, the story, you hear a story and it kind of activates your brain. And then you keep thinking, like, how does that fit with me? So a little bit of mirroring. Then, the dopamine is released and we're like, something feels good about the story. And then we kind of, we kind of think, how can I engage and apply that story? So the part that's interesting around like storytelling is you might forget this podcast or who I was in, a few weeks. You'll probably recall about this Bosabella magazine story, because that's a
Mhm.
kind of a fun thing for Francesca and I to talk about. So we really launch, whether it's through print, through really short snippets of video that we share on our intranet and in releases, posters, and all these ways that we really hope to tell the incredible stories of our employees across the system in a way that inspires people to not only know the standard, but to also, say, hey, I think I'll try that behavior too.
Wow, I love that. That's a great story. You also mentioned in how you make this work. So for example, when you start a team meeting, you just go around the Zoom room, if you will, and you ask how everybody's doing for the first 5 or 10 minutes. And you also mentioned you might not be able to do that with a Zoom room of a couple of hundred, but then you can fraction that down, right? And
Right.
maybe make smaller groups to touch in with people.
Yeah. There's really a lot of neat ways. So that's, we always try to figure like, how are we doing in the moment? And so
Mm.
that's what so we have a really large meeting on every other Thursday. It's called Lunch with Leaders at Penn that people can tap into. And my
Mhm.
boss, Cindy Morgan, does an awesome job in leading that. But we use like Poll Everywhere software that people can just kind of pop on and answer from the phone. And we kind of get a really cool word cloud out of that. But people really, I think in this year of this, or year plus of this pandemic, have been using like chat functions to really share how they're feeling. So there's good ways to kind of, whether it's a small group check-in, big group check-in, I think, and even with virtual meetings, I try to log in 5 minutes early. And I've been with Penn about 20 years. So I have the benefit of knowing a lot of people over time. But just to kind of log in and chat with people before the meeting starts, as if you would in a conference room. So
Yeah.
really trying to, like mimic the same behaviors that you would have in a regular meeting.
Absolutely, like emulate that behavior. I'm with you, Craig. I was always the person and still am. I like to show up early, even if it's just me checking my notes, right? Or the agenda. Um, so you've guys been in the forefront of mental health, if you will. Like that's the big topic, but you've really been tapping into it. And I feel like these tips are so useful for those that just for those who have organizations that just don't know where to start. And it's just a matter of asking and having just casual conversation, not related at all to work, right?
Right, exactly. It could be like it's just how's everyone. I mean, I have a team that I meet with each week. That's a team of 5 for one of my work groups, and we start off our first 10 minutes are just kind of how's everybody's weekend, and I, I tend to be, I'm on the the HR org development side, but I'm not the squishiest guy out there. So, but so I probably more like what's our agenda, and I think I've made our agenda which we do either virtually or sometimes in person now, is to kind of just, how's everybody doing? And we talk about, our weekends and, whether it's loved ones, families, activities, just to kind of check in. And I think there's, the more we know about each other, the more then when the work gets tough, you can really then I know about you, you know about me, and we still get the work done. So it doesn't
Right.
mean that we spend an hour shooting the breeze. It means that we spend time knowing about each other and then taking care of each other.
Love it. It's like a soft opening. It's a
Yeah.
soft opening and just getting everybody relaxed. Kind of, if I were to talk about how the flow of the podcast happens, I like to do, informal conversation like you and I did today and say, okay, this is what it's going to look like. You'll know this, you'll know that. And again, it's just to get everybody relaxed. But I love how you've been able to explain it and how it's working for your organization, how it's working for Penn, and how you're leading it. I mean, you're responsible for thousands of individuals. Again, Mr. Humble, like tens of thousands.
Not directly, but right. But I always say I fly at the 40,000 foot level to make
Okay.
sure that our employees are engaged and that our patients are getting the best possible experience. I also kind of have this, I have all the data, so I have all of the surveying side too. So whenever a patient completes a survey, my team also kind of curates that data. So we have both the data to drive the perception of the experience, as well as this kind of more engaging part of the storytelling.
Right. Thank you. So if we were to sum up, what do you think organizations, small and large, what is one thing that they can start doing today to tip towards the awareness of mental health and creating culture and community? What of your experience there and just overall, what would be your top suggestion?
Yeah. So, we hear it sometimes. It's, like it's okay not to be okay.
Mm,
So I think sometimes, as a supervisor, you might be like, hey, cheer up, what's going on? You see, and part of what is to meet your employees where they are. And that some people have had a tough time. So we have 85% of our employees have been going to work every day during the pandemic, crossing the threshold
wow.
of a hospital or a clinic. So their stressors are different than the employee who maybe is working remotely and is living in their workplace. So I think we have to kind of meet folks where they are. So really being able to, have the conversation, meet the employees where they are, and providing support. And we also are lucky that since we're a little bit larger, we have a site that's called Penn Cobalt, which is for our employees. But what that does is provides just a resource for them and around things of mental health. So it could be some online resources, but also provides for them the ability to request a counselor or a consult. And I think whether if you're large or small, knowing the resources. So if you're a manager of people and an employee is not doing well, that you maybe know, even in your community, a quick referral for a resource, an EAP program, a local professional to help.
Yeah, I love that. So a mutual friend of ours, Marcia Zaruba O'Connor, who I interviewed previously, she, she has her own HR organization, and she spoke of paying attention during team meetings. She gave one particular example, Craig, that there was this one particular individual who one day she saw her dressed in a hoodie, and that was not normal for her. So after the meeting, she said, "Hey, what's up? What's going on?" And she was having some personal issues and she just needed to be heard. So it goes to what you just said, meeting the employees where they are, but also paying attention to that, because they might not always come forward and feel comfortable with admitting it and talking about it. Because sometimes it just feels awkward. So perhaps approaching someone and just listening is a great factor. So speaking of clothes, you know where this is going, because everyone who's listening, Craig has done his homework like no other. He and his wife have listened to all the episodes, so he knows the question I'm going to ask right now, which I think is
No
great because
surprises.
no surprises. That's what a great person he is. So my friend Craig, let's share what your favorite article of clothing or accessory is of all time and how it made you feel.
So I actually have a two-part answer. So when we were in Italy, probably 4 years ago, I bought a really nice wooden watch in Venice, and it was great. However, I tend to talk with my hands a lot. I was out one time and I hit it against the table and it broke, and I could not find anybody to fix it.
Oh,
It just broke. So it was this really cool thing. So I actually looked and I found another wooden watch that I bought that's US made. And just, it's really, as a guy, I wear a wedding ring and I wear a watch. So I'm not really a bling kind of guy. And two things is that one is that I have a hairier arm. So for men out there, wearing a metal watch is not a good thing at all. I
ouch.
found that leather, yeah, exactly. Leather bands tend to get a little sweaty. So this wooden watch is it's really light and it's kind of fun, but it's a conversation starter. I've
Yeah.
had a cashier at Wawa compliment me at 5:30 in the morning on my watch. I've had people just in meetings. I've been to a wedding where someone says, and I think part of what is that we use that to make a connection with people. So for
I
me, it's kind of
love,
fun. It fits my lifestyle, but it also creates some good conversation.
I love that. And I will remind you, it certainly is a good conversation piece, because the last time I saw you in person for an amazing espresso, you told me the story about that wooden watch. You
Right.
told me the story. You were wearing the American made version, if you will, because that was what, 3 years ago,
Yeah.
perhaps 2.5 years ago or something like that. Um, So I love that story. And I love that it's a conversation starter. And that's what all of this is about. That's what culture is about. That's what paying attention to mental health is about, is having that conversation. Craig, I can't thank you enough for your time today. You've been amazing to me personally, and I trust that everyone who listens to this episode is going to get a lot out of it. However, if someone wanted to continue the conversation with you, where's the best place for them to find you, Craig?
Just go through LinkedIn. Luckily, I have a very unique name. So just Craig Loundas, Loundas. I'm the only one out there at Penn Medicine, and I would welcome the chance to connect through LinkedIn.
Awesome. I will certainly add the hyperlink in the show notes to make it easier for everyone. Trust me when I tell you, Craig is incredibly wise and connected and a good friend as well. So thank you so much. I hope you have an incredible day, Craig.
Okay, thanks, Francesca.